Hi, George.
Hi, Taras, right?
Yes. It's okay. So thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. Could you please introduce yourself?
So I'm George Kalpakas. I work on the AngularJS team, and I'm also working on the NgUpgrade project.
Okay. And you will be giving a talk.
I am giving a talk with Pete Bacon Darwin tomorrow on NgUpgrade,
Okay.
showing the API and how you can use it to upgrade your AngularJS apps to Angular.
It's a hot topic.
I hope so.
I was speaking to Peter earlier, and he was saying that there are people coming up to him and saying that there's they have large Angular JS applications that. And most of the conference is about Angular, right? And so so I think the upgrade story is probably really important to them, I would imagine.
Yeah, it seems that there are many big AngularJS apps, and it should be very relevant because for most of them it's not an easy doing a big bang upgrade, like stopping and redoing the whole stuff in Angular. It's not a viable path. So ngUpgrade should be very something.
Yeah, very easy, or at least make their life easier, right, in making the
Yeah.
actual upgrade. What is the day-to-day like? Like when you actually are working, like how do you figure out what you should be working on?
So there are already a bunch of stuff that they're on our backlog, and we know that we need to work on, and we pick the ones that we think are more will have the most impact on the end users, and it's definitely something that we are seeking more feedback on because it's kind of a new project. Not many people have started using it, so based on the feedback that we get, we decide on what are the main pain points for users and try to address them.
Sounds like feedback from the community is actually really useful for you to be able to figure out what to add to the project.
Exactly, and we're exactly at the point that this feedback would be very valuable for us.
And what kind of things, what are some of the recent developments in this project?
So one of the main development that happened late last year was that the whole thing was rewritten in order to support AOT compilation, because the original version did not support that. You can only have JIT compilation, and we wrote it from scratch so that you can now have the Angular parts AOT compiled, ahead of time compiled, and that was a major change, and the API changed completely. There have been some additions lately, like improving the interoperability with things like ngModel and the control value accessor, stuff that will make it easier to use components and have them interoperate between Angular and AngularJS.
That sounds like you guys had a lot of things to work on recently. And do you know what you'll be working on in the near future?
One thing is working on docs and more resources that can help people get started using ngUpgrade, because we're kind of behind on that. And we have some plans to improve performance of ngUpgrade apps, because right now you have two change detectors that have to know about each other, and one triggers another. So there are some issues and some specific use cases that are causing more change detection cycles than they should. So we have some plans on how we can reduce that and improve the performance of upgraded apps. And the other goal is to provide tooling and ways that could reduce the boilerplate that people need to write in order to upgrade their apps, or make it easier for them, and basically reduce the code that they need to write manually in order to upgrade.
And for people who might not be familiar with it, how does that work? You add the ngUpgrade to the project, right? And then what's the next step? Like, how does that work?
There are two operations. One is downgrading stuff, which means that you have something that is an Angular thing, an Angular component or an Angular service, and you downgraded it by making it available in AngularJS. The other thing is upgrading stuff. So when you have something that is in AngularJS, a component or a service, you can upgrade it so that it's available in Angular from Angular components and Angular services. And then you have to bootstrap both frameworks because the app runs with both frameworks will be running on the same app. So you have to bootstrap them both, which is kind of it's a bit of a dance right now. So you have to do a specific sequence of operations, and after that you can upgrade or downgrade stuff in order to make it available to the other framework.
What kind of challenges are you encountering with this process?
One challenge is that you need to make both frameworks be aware of each other. So you have to there are the injectors that are very core to both Angular frameworks. They have to know about the services and the components that are available. So you have to bootstrap both frameworks and then make each other be aware of the other injectors so that they can inject things. That was one of the biggest challenges. Now, another thing is that in order for AOT to work, you have to provide some metadata that could be statically extracted, which it has not been a concern for AngularJS. So usually you have to duplicate some code in order to give that extra metadata to the AOT compiler. Because in AngularJS that would be available at runtime, which is too late for the AOT compiler. So you need a way to provide that metadata to the compiler.
If a user encounters an error, like do you ever find there's errors that are specific to the actual upgrade? Like how do people go about debugging those if they find something like that?
There are few errors that are specific to ngUpgrade, but there are many errors that could be due to not configuring it correctly or misusing some APIs, and those errors can be confusing because you don't know exactly what you have done wrong because it's something that could originate from ngUpgrade. So this is one of the areas that we need to work more on and make it easier for people to identify what the actual cause is, because it can be challenging when you have two frameworks trying to work together. So that's definitely one of the areas that we need to work more to make it easier for people to identify the cause of these errors and maybe guide them to fixing them.
Do you have any advice for people if they encounter an error like that? Like what they could do? Like what could their kind of path to resolving that problem is? Like at what point should they file an issue on GitHub, for example? Like what should they try first?
The traditional approach that you should try to simplify the use case as much as possible and remove anything that might be extraneous and not related to the problem. So to try to identify at exactly which point the behavior we expect starts to deviate from the actual behavior. I think basically that at the moment.
Yeah, and I can imagine it could be really difficult. I mean, it's hard to generalize, and especially with debugging, right? But eliminating the narrowing down the problem down to kind of trying to figure out what is actually causing the problem is always a good place to start. But beyond that, I can imagine it could be kind of hard to say.
Another thing that I think will be also very useful is to understand what ngUpgrade does, how it works. Not if it's not a black magic box that you don't know what's happening inside. So if you understand what it means to call a downgrade injectable and what it does, it makes it easier to identify what might have gone wrong. And that's also important. That's why it's important to have improved documentation and give people better overview of what ngUpgrade does, how it works.
Yeah, I got it. I'm curious, stack traces. Like, what does that look like? Is there any information in the stack trace that might be helpful?
So the stack traces are the typical stack traces that you would get from an Angular app or an AngularJS app. There is not something specific to them.
There's no area of code where if you ended up in here, there's probably an ngUpgrade's problem.
Yeah, no, the ngUpgrade specific errors are mainly due to some features that are not supported by ngUpgrade, like stuff from AngularJS that do not map directly to Angular. So if you have, if you're using the compile function of a directive, you cannot upgrade such a directive to Angular. So there are these errors that say that this feature is not supported, you cannot upgrade this directive because it's a terminal directive or something like that. And I think they're pretty straightforward to understand in such cases. But in many cases, the error would not be upgrade specific, but it will be caused by something that you did not do correctly, and it could be hard to say, why is it not available in Angular? I upgraded it.
Right. Yeah, that's the user land. It's stuff that happens in the application. That stuff is like you can't predict, right? So there's a million things that can go wrong. But I think that this kind of projects, this project, I'm sure for people that need to make an upgrade, all the work that you put into it is going to be really meaningful. And thank you for working on it.
I hope so.
And so if someone wanted to reach out to you and either provide feedback or maybe ask you a question, what's the best way to reach you on the internet?
You can definitely submit an issue on GitHub, and that's where we're looking for feedback and looking into issues. And I don't know.
That's a good place. So George, thank you very much for taking time to talk to me.
Thank you for having me.
So pleasure.
Hey there. Are you into reactive programming using JavaScript? Do you have to deal with asynchrony in your web app? And join this instructor Ben Lesh to learn all of the ins and outs of RxJS in his hands-on workshop. Available online and in person, go to rxworkshop.com for more details and to book your spot today.